you all for being here today. We all see it every single day. The problem on our roads, we see children getting injured, adults getting injured, people losing their lives, pedestrians being put in harm's way, drivers being put in harm's way, and you all are leaders in various parts of the community. You're law enforcement, you're on the front lines in the hospitals, you're in the schools, you're here from the community members, you're leaders in the community, and all of you are tackling this crisis on the front lines daily, and you also are the change makers in helping educate the community in all of this. Every single day, how much are you hearing from community members about the challenges you all see on the roads, in the schools, on the streets? All of you can weigh in.
I'd say from a Henderson standpoint, weekly, if not daily, we hear from our citizens. Being over our traffic unit in the city of Henderson, we hear from it a lot, and we're working towards making a difference in the community.
What do you hear a lot?
We hear a lot of the complaints in regards to seeing the riders on the dirt bikes, how they ride, the endangering of the drivers and the pedestrians.
I'd say this is also something that nobody is immune to. No matter who you are in the community, you use your public infrastructure on a daily basis. So whether you're that student getting to and from school, the parent, someone getting to work, whether you're on the vehicle itself or whether you're in a car trying to navigate around or through the vehicle, you're impacted.
I would say for us at CCSD, this has probably been the topic of the year. And we get alerts every time a student is involved in any sort of accident. And I mean, it feels like we get, definitely multiple a week. Sometimes it feels like multiple a day. And we've lost 4 students due to these kind of traffic collisions. It's been a very sad year in that way. And we need to do everything we can as a community to keep our kids safe.
You're engaging with the community. Your role as Chief Engagement Officer. What are you hearing from parents, from community members, from teachers? Every day when people come and go from school, you hear it all.
Yeah, I think there's a huge sense of frustration and people almost being caught a little off guard at how much this has increased in impact over the last year or so. And I know all of my colleagues here can talk more about why that has been. But it is e-bikes and e-scooters, but it's also pedestrians, right? And folks on traditional bicycles. So we are in a crisis point here in our community where our pedestrians and our bike riders and our drivers all need to do more to pay attention and keep us all safe.
Just a show of hands, who here has an e-bike, e-scooter, e-device in their house? What's the appeal?
For me, I'd say the appeal is that when my kids were younger, they were both in high school and didn't have a driver's license yet, and getting to and from school was very convenient on an e-device.
I go camping a lot, so I have scooters kind of like similar to the one next to us here for easier transportation to instead of renting a vehicle or something like that when we go out of town.
And as I was mentioning to all of you, many people simply click checkout on Amazon or on a website. They're buying it for Black Friday, for Cyber Monday. It doesn't come with instructions and it doesn't come with a helmet. And so that's the big challenge for all of us. Okay, Joe, so tell me about Wheels and Rides.
Wheels and Rides is on Valley View Boulevard here in Las Vegas, right in the heart of town. We do sales and service of most electric vehicles, including e-scooters, e-bikes, e-motos, one-wheels, and electric unicycles as well. We're a diverse store. We're probably the only store in town that sells a little bit of everything and services pretty much everything as well.
And that's unique because a lot of people are buying these online, but they can come in, they can take a look, they can get a feel for it, and also they can get information on safety.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with every machine that we sell, we advise them to wear helmets, what type of helmets that are certified like CPSC or .4, depending on the vehicle that they're using, because not every helmet is the same. There's helmets that are rated up to 10 miles an hour, and there's helmets that are .4 approved for like motorcycles and what have you. And generally when somebody buys, say, an e-moto or something that does above 40 miles per hour, they should go the .4 route, and anything under, as far as, like mountain bike helmets and things of that nature, are rated in the low 40s, and they're CPSC certified, and those are the things that you're looking for as far as safety is concerned, as well as your elbow, knee, and other chest protectors and things like that, depending on the level of riding that you're doing.
So basically, above a certain speed, or depending on the level of riding, you need a motorcycle helmet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Are a lot of people surprised that they need a motorcycle helmet?
Yeah, and I'm surprised at how many people just don't wear a helmet. Adults really. Kids, for the most part, when they're always with an adult when they're purchasing, so we always recommend and guide them in the direction of, hey, this is what you need. Gloves, helmet, knee pads, elbow pads, things like that.
What generally are adults looking for?
Right now, I would say adults, for the most part, either looking at like a pedal e-bike or electric scooter, for the convenience factor. We sell a lot of scooters, for example, to truck drivers that come to town. They drive for, Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, UFC, things of that nature. And these guys use it so when they get to towns in different areas, they kind of leave the truck where it's at, they hop on their scooter, makes it more efficient for them, get to the store, buy their cigarettes, whatever they got to do, and just to get around town without having to worry about moving a big old truck. So a lot of them are using it for that. It's a convenience thing, as the officer said. Kids going to and from school gives them a little sense of freedom, gives parents the ability to, be more flexible.
What is the biggest misconception that people have about these devices? And what is this, by the way, in the middle? I asked before, what is this? I have never seen it.
This is a one wheel by a company called Future Motion out of Santa Cruz. They just had their 10-year anniversary. It's been around for a while. A lot of people still have never seen one before. And it's basically kind of, let's say, an electric skateboard, so to speak, except the wheel's in the middle. So it gives you the ability to pivot and do certain maneuvers that are not able to be done on something with 4 wheels. So it's very versatile. We race them. We do downhill mountain bike racing with these. It's what got me to start Wheels End Rides.
What's the biggest misconception that people have about an e-device?
I would say that, people think that just because a machine might only do 20 miles per hour, that they don't need to wear a helmet, which I'm sure that, the medical individuals that are here today will tell you otherwise, And I tell them, I'm like, you can split your head open walking. So, what makes you think at 20 miles an hour, it's not going to happen. So, we try to, encourage them to purchase a helmet, but, with adults, some are stubborn more so than others. So, we do our best, of course.
So, in addition, the moment you purchase one of these, what safety equipment do you need immediately?
I would say if you're riding something like a scooter, you definitely want to get yourself a good helmet first and foremost, because the brain is the one part that is hardest to fix. Maybe a set of gloves as well, which would be really good as well for better control, and if you did go down, having protection as well. If you're doing something like a one wheel or an electric unicycle, you see these guys going around town on these electric unicycles and they're fully geared out. Helmet, elbow, chest, knee. It's kind of necessary because these machines are, hitting speeds in upwards of 60 miles an hour now.
60 miles an hour?
Yeah, not the one wheel, but the unicycles for sure. They've got ones that just came out that do 90 miles an hour. So
how do you protect yourself from that?
It's motorcycle gear. At that point, you're basically riding a one-wheel motorcycle. I used to race motorcycles back in the day, and we wore everything from helmets to leather suits, gloves, riding boots, the whole 9. So,
wow.
Yeah, the more protection, the better. The higher the speeds, the more protection you need. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to end up killing you, is the speed.
When you look at the annual injuries from e-scooters and e-bikes, they are surging exponentially every single year. The injuries from children are surging every single year. And when we talk about the national trends among patients, interestingly enough, most are older teens and younger adults, and most are male. You all shared the stats you're seeing from the hospitals, and it's strikingly similar. These are the same people that are ending up in the hospitals right here in Vegas. You both are seeing in the hospitals that same similar scenario play out with the kind of patients you're seeing.
Yeah, so nationally there was a 100% increase in the number of incidents from 2024 to 2025. We've had over 200 patients come through Sunrise Trauma alone just this year, and 1/3 of those have been children. And unfortunately, we had 3 deaths this year, 2 of which were children. And the common theme that we see is that only 22% of our patients were wearing helmets, and the ones that did wear helmets were often wearing helmets that were inadequate for the speed that they were traveling.
Talking about the demographics, a lot of these are older teens and younger adults. Why are we seeing those kind of trends?
I think a good guess would be, just like we discussed earlier, you see a lot of them use them for transportation to school. A lot of them use them for recreational purposes, and so that tends to hit that age range. We had a few of them come in, of course, that we noticed. That's why we started digging in a little bit. And we even had one recently that was willing to speak to everybody. And the misconception is the safety of it a lot of times. He came to see us, got admitted because he wasn't wearing a helmet. He had severe injuries. But before that, he'd been in a previous wreck where he was wearing a helmet because he thought the slower speed was fine. So,
yeah, with the younger, obviously for kids that don't have their driver's license yet, it provides some convenience, or for young adults that maybe they can't afford a car, it provides added convenience. I think that's why we see that age range more commonly. And it probably takes a little bit of physical skill to ride that, so that's why I probably see it in the younger patients versus the older patients.
Would you say that adults or parents, they're very surprised when they learn the extent of their injuries? You all are seeing mostly head trauma as the biggest injuries?
Head trauma is number one, and it can often be fatal for these patients, unfortunately. I think that parents are surprised because they're maybe not aware of how fast these scooters and the e-bikes can go. They think maybe because it's a scooter or a bike, I don't have to worry as much. But they travel, highway speeds, some of them. And without the proper protection, without knowing the rules of the road, without wearing helmets and other protective gear, they're really at danger.
When somebody has a severe injury like head trauma, what's the road to recovery even like?
So for minor head trauma, this can just mean headaches, some amnesia, some difficulty processing sequenced set of steps. For the more severe end, it can mean surgery, and unfortunately sometimes it can mean death. And
John, this has just impacted the hospital rooms. These are hundreds more patients you're getting every single year.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, and we part of what you talk about surprising statistics is we've seen over 200, but we've actually admitted 75% of those 200. And that means that their injuries were bad enough, whether they be head or anywhere else, that we were keeping them at the hospital.
What's the road to recovery like for these people?
I mean, you're looking at it, any type of major injury, you're looking at least a 4 to 5 day stay. If Dr. Fisher and his team ends up taking them to surgery, that can complicate anything. So it fills up the hospital. You talk about the fact that severely injured patients and how long they stay, how long it takes them to recover from that. And then once they're discharged from the hospital, they're not necessarily ready to go. They still have some rehab to go after that.
So they'll need rehabilitation for months, even years, possibly.
Yeah, it could be months, and some may not be the same as they were before the accident or before the crash. And I understand the convenience and the attraction of these vehicles, and I think they certainly have a place. We just need better education to protect those that are using it, and where they can ride and how to protect themselves.
And I'll get into overall education later in the group session after. What would you like parents or users to know about what happens when they don't have the proper safety equipment? I'm sure that's kind of part of your talks daily with people.
I would say part of the easiest thing to tell somebody is, to Dr. Fisher's point, they're a handy device. I mean, they're here, people are going to use them, they have their place, but know the safety side of it. Understand the type of helmet you need to have with it. Understand that this scooter that used to do 5 miles an hour because you pushed it with your foot can now do 25 miles an hour. So the helmet that you were wearing yesterday or not wearing at all may need to be something different. You need to educate yourselves. Be educated for your children, because otherwise you're going to pay the price later.
How prevalent are these devices among students all throughout the district?
Yeah, so on the way to and from school, where we used to see kids walking or riding bicycles, the e-scooters and the e-bicycles have taken it. Predominantly, that's what they're using. If they're not being picked up by a parent or using our transportation through the district, they're on those devices.
How are they riding them? Are they obeying the laws?
I would say for the most part, yes. But if you go to any school zone on any day, especially dismissal, you'll see the kids riding down the center of the turn lane. You'll see them riding in the bike lane the wrong way, on the wrong side of the street. None of them have helmets at this point. I mean, very few of them do. And they're riding at higher speeds. Very few are riding in behaviors that are just completely reckless or unsafe for others. It's usually just their own safety is being taken into account of, but it's being very unpredictable is the biggest issue that we see, is that you can't just dart into the roadway. You can't go from sidewalk to street to sidewalk to crosswalk. You have to either act like a vehicle or you have to act like a pedestrian. And if they got that in their mind when they were leaving, they're going home, I'm going to remain on the sidewalk and I know that there's these risks versus being in the roadway and there's these risks, not mixing those two back and forth could probably save a lot of injuries.
What are the rules for bringing them to school? Do they have to just park it in front of a school and just lock it up?
So right now they can ride the devices to school, and obviously there are devices that are not legal for anybody to ride on the street, and those are those e-motorcycles that can't be registered at the DMV, that they're being considered either as an off-highway vehicle or like a dirt bike, and when they are on the road, we're considering them like a motorcycle. They need to have a motorcycle license, insurance, registration, and none of that's happening. So yeah, we welcome them to ride the legal versions of these e-devices to school, which is those scooters that are under 100 pounds, that go less than 20 miles an hour, that the bicycles that are less than 750 watts, that go less than 28 miles per hour. There's a lot of different categories for the bikes and the scooters, but those are generally the ones that we cover. And if it doesn't have an actual crank and it doesn't spin the pedals and it's pegs, we suggest you leave that at home because that's going to be considered a motorcycle.
How much every single day do you have to say to a kid or a teenager who's on one of these devices, hey, slow down, where's your helmet, where's your safety equipment?
Yeah, today we're doing a saturation in the school zones in like central Vegas with other departments, especially the departments here joining us, and I've talked to 3 different kids just this morning. Ones that are riding the wrong way, ones that aren't wearing helmets, and especially kids that we're seeing where they're riding multiple people on a device, where that you're not supposed to do that. If the device is made for multiple people or it has an extra set of like pegs or an extra long seat for a bicycle, that could be acceptable. But these scooters where there could be 2 or 3 people on them, which one of the fatalities that happened this year, that there was more than 1 student on it. You can't do that. It's very unsafe. And then it goes past the requirements of the device, the weight, and how fast it's going to take you to slow down, or how much longer it's going to take you to slow down due to that extra weight. So those are the things that we're seeing.
And you're tracking the number of kids who have been struck to and from school in general, but you're also seeing a rise of these kind of collisions on these devices as well.
I think it's across the board. Lieutenant Campbell's really taken the lead on this, but about 1/3 of our incidents have involved e-bikes or e-scooters. And I think it's important to note too that about half of them, it's either the biker or pedestrian error. And so that's why we're really emphasizing to our students, you have to be following the laws, you have to be paying attention, you can't be walking down the street on your phone. It's very dangerous. But yeah, about 1/3 of them do involve the e-bikes or e-scooters.
Mm-hmm.
How is CCSD working to inform students and inform the parents? It seems like a lot of these parents are buying these devices but not providing kids the instructions or safety equipment.
Yeah. So last Friday, we sent home a note to all of our parents asking them to consider what requirements there are for legal devices when they're purchasing gifts for their students. We are doing more and more through our Safe Routes to School program, where we're looking at schools where there are concentrations of more incidents and going in and talking to not only the students but the families as well about how to be more safe going to and from school. So we're trying to do everything we can we're even in the spring, we're going to do a series of videos produced by students talking to their peers about how to be more safe at school. So we're trying anything we can. It's a tough battle to fight, though.
In your conversations with parents, with teachers, with kids, are you surprised at how many don't know what to do, don't know safety protocols, don't know safety equipment?
Yeah, even though some of the technology has been around for years now, I think it's just really now hitting the market at an affordable price point, because they can go online and where things used to probably cost between $1,000 and $2,000. Now we're seeing it being available from multiple different manufacturers as little as a couple $100s to something that around mid-range $500, which can be very affordable to people, especially to get their kid to school on time. And I definitely understand that they're fun. I was a kid once too. I like to go fast, all that stuff that young boys like to do. But yeah, it's not coming with that extra knowledge, because your older brothers and sisters, your mom and dad, grandpa didn't have these. They weren't going that fast, so that nobody really knows. But it's very difficult when a student or a kid doesn't fully develop until like their mid-20s, that we're trying to teach an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old what traffic law is. And that's almost impossible. So before, when they're riding a bicycle, they're going 5 or 10 miles an hour, and there's more of a chance for them to react and slow down and be more predictable. Now they're doing 20, 30, 40 miles an hour, not as skilled, their balance is still, off, and, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Captains, what are we seeing on the roads every day? It gets scary, and even today, it turned deadly.
That's true. Well, I think what we're seeing is an overabundance of riders out there really not knowing the laws and not obeying the laws. We're experiencing a problem over in Mountain's Edge with the e-dirt bikes. These kids are driving in the parks and tearing the parks up, which is a problem. And I think the important part is parents educating their children on how these devices work. Earlier I spoke about having my kids have these devices. And the first thing we did was sat down with them and talk to them about the rules of the road. We bought them protective equipment, and what we did is went on practice rides to school, where my wife and I would follow them in the car and see how they were doing. And we would grade them on their performances and give them extra advice and suggestions on how to make it better. But on the roads, we're seeing all kinds of things. I think the thing that people forget is that these devices, they move so fast, and a lot of the drivers don't have time to react to when these devices come out in the road. I think Lieutenant Campbell said it best: you either act as a motorist or you act as a pedestrian. You can't do both. And the one thing that they need to remember is that you have to act as a bicycle. Bicycles ride on the right side of the road. They don't ride on the left. You use the bike lanes. If you're on a sidewalk, the speed limit is 15 miles per hour.
Do people and parents know the rules of the road?
I would say no. I mean, I think that's the part of having this panel today, is to educate people and spread the word so that more people do know. I think it's incumbent upon every parent to sit down with their children and to look those things up. You can easily do a Google search and find the laws. So I think that we have to be responsible for our own children as well.
And in Henderson and in all the jurisdictions, they're stepping up enforcement. But what's the line when you have the option to cite somebody for reckless riding or disobeying the law, but when do you decide to use that as an opportunity for education versus citation? And it's a line here because you're dealing with juveniles.
Absolutely, it is a line, and that's something we always take into consideration, because citations are strictly to change behavior. So when we've been out there doing enforcement in the city, one of the things that we're looking at when we make these contacts is the first prong of the two-prong approach is to educate them first, and then the enforcement second. So we are seeing, to kind of go with what Captain Dudley said, absolutely, we're seeing that parents are not aware either. They don't know what's going on, they don't know the laws, they don't know the rules, and they also don't know what their kids are up to and what they're actually doing with them. That is another side of it. But with that approach is as we go out there and we make contact, if it's good context, we see good behavior, we see a sincere change in heart, like, hey, they don't need a citation, they get it, their parents are out here. There's no citation there, but there are those who need the enforcement side, because it needs to be a change in behavior based on their driving, based on their riding. Wheelies on the sidewalks, driving too quickly. The bike in and of itself is illegal because it's an electric dirt bike that shouldn't be on the roads, period. So we take everything into account and then base it off of that.
When a parent gets cited, how do they take it? Since a lot of times they don't even know the laws themselves.
It's kind of a mix, because when they do come out, we have had mixed reactions based on parents. We've had one parent that's come out and said, you can have the bike, I don't want to see that bike ever again. So they can tell that bike has been a problem to them and to the family for a while. There are others that don't take it so well because they did pay X amount of dollars for that bike, but they obviously were unaware of what the rules were and what their kid was actually doing. So it's been mixed with it, but we do our best to educate and provide information. We use a QR code that provides them with the rules provided by e-bicycles, with e-motorcycles and e-dirt bikes, so they can differentiate between all of them.
Captain Dudley, education has to happen every single day from your officers out in the field whenever they see somebody, an adult or a teenager or a kid, riding recklessly. Yes,
I think, as Captain said here, every encounter is an opportunity to educate people. And in Metro's jurisdiction, we've only given 13 citations to individuals for e-devices. Now, there could be more because our Brazos accounting system doesn't account for those citations that are only like a bicycle. So those same rules apply. I believe that it's important to educate people, and that's the only way that we're going to make this thing work.
It has to be one person, one family at a time, because every single rider on the road can make a difference.
Yes.
And if I can add to that too, and that's what's been the biggest part, is it's not just one jurisdiction or one organization, it's across the board with everything. And that's one thing we've been kind of working towards within our neighboring jurisdictions and our local business partners and community, is to get the education out there. And that has got us on the right path to where we need to be. We still have some work to do, but we're working closely together to make the roads safe and to keep our children safe.
And it's going to, because there's only so much you can do in contacts with the public, you are really relying on other jurisdictions and other government bodies, other local agencies, local schools to help get the word out too.
Yes. I think now we have a very strong relationship amongst the jurisdictions, and it's only going to get stronger. So I think that message will get across that we are working together, and that education and coordination is going to make this thing better for everyone.
If I could, as Captain Dudley said and Captain Van Beveren hinted at there, is we can keep sending out information, we can keep educating, we can keep making flyers and pamphlets, but people need to be accountable for their own safety, even kids. But the parents need to tell them what's going on. And what I liked that Captain Dudley said the best is that he went out there and he demonstrated the behavior. Like, he showed them how to use the device. We just don't send them to school and they just teach themselves. I mean, when it's a dangerous behavior, when there's something that their safety is at risk, we should be out there showing them, don't just use a crosswalk. This is how you use a crosswalk. This is when we walk. This is when we make eye contact with the drivers. When this is darting out in the roadway versus, being safe and waiting, for our turn to go out into traffic. So I applaud him for bringing that up, because that's what a good parent does.
We went out in the community and we asked some viewers, what questions do you have if you could pose it to local leaders and local people in the community? Let's listen in on them.
My name is Allison, and I live in the northwest part of town. I'm a concerned parent. I see a lot of kids on e-scooters traveling to and from school. I just wanted to know if there was a way that we can get the drivers' attentions just to be more careful, to slow down, to pay more attention, and to watch out for these kids traveling.
So that's a really good point from that parent right there. She wants to know what can be done as people are going to and from school. She sees people putting pedestrians and other drivers at risk.
It's interesting that she brought that up because one of the difficulties we have with e-scooters is they're not as visible as like a car or a motorcycle. Even bicycles, you see bicycle riders at night, they have flashing LEDs on the back of the bike or on their helmet, or they wear reflective vests. On e-scooters, it's just usually someone in street clothes, and the reflectors, because they're low, are really hard to see. So if there's some lighting device or some reflective vest or something for the kids to wear to make them more identifiable to drivers. I think drivers aren't aware because you don't see them very easily.
And how does that translate to accidents that you see?
Well, they're just not aware of the e-scooter passing through them or next to them. It's very difficult. When you have a pedestrian that's going motorcycle speeds, it makes it difficult for drivers to identify those. Obviously nobody wants to be involved in a crash like this. So if there's any kind of equipment or that they wear that could be easier for the drivers to spot, that would certainly help.
Yeah, when we're in the school zones, we see this every day, every morning, every afternoon. It's 30 minutes of chaos for arrivals and dismissals, and speeding is one of the biggest complaints that we see, and it's from a lot of their own parents driving. But if you have any type of device or vehicle that's moving a lot faster than the driver expects it to be, then it's just gonna be that extra time to react, because if you look down the road and you're thinking somebody's gonna be doing 30 or 40 miles an hour and they're really doing 90, that communication that your brain has, or when you see the thing coming right at you all of a sudden, it's very difficult to react the same way you would have if they were doing the speed limit.
And that's part of the challenge with these school zones too, is we have drivers also not paying attention or maybe speeding through school zones. What can we do to make sure drivers are aware and pay attention?
Well, we try to ask them to stay off their devices, keep their eyes on the road, leave early, know their route. I mean, it's the same information that we put out all the time, but when you're driving a multi-thousand-pound vehicle, is to just pay attention and be present. Like if you travel 45 minutes across town and you don't remember your drive, that's probably a problem.
And Commissioner, the school zone bill could help with that too, because drivers are going to be forced to slow down.
Yeah, in partnership with the school district and the special session, the first time in state's history in a special session, thanks to the governor, our legislature, who actually took some action related to traffic safety. We're thrilled that the county and the school district brought this item along with everybody here and have actually been able to make some progress. I think this will give some flexibility to the school district to adjust school times, to adjust school zone times in conjunction with the respective jurisdiction, and there's several other measures. We also, not too long ago, over nearly a year ago now, in Clark County passed our ordinance related to e-bikes and e-scooters. And I think what's important for the community to recognize, you have on this panel, you've done a great job assembling people who are focused every day on this problem. There are so many people in this community who are working really hard, who recognize that this is a crisis and are getting after it. So I think you can't take for granted this level of collaboration that frankly has never really happened in this community. It's a really positive thing.
And it has to happen because it really is going to take every single part of the community. I'm going to play the next question here.
I'm Dakota. What are the rules as far as speeds and safety for these things?
My name's Alvin. Do they have any training before they go out there and go on the street? Like any rules they should follow, like how to follow the cars and stuff?
Interesting from these viewers, very basic question. What's the speed? Do I need training before I get on these devices? And the answer is no right now. How do you follow cars? How do you go on on the road. Someone said to me they feel more comfortable going in the opposite direction, but that's exactly what causes accidents as well. Any advice for these folks? Because these are basic questions that everybody gets when they get one of these devices.
One of the major problems with going against the grain of traffic, even on a sidewalk, is that us adults, you know, when we're pulling out of a parking lot or making a right-hand turn in general, you know, we want to tend to look to the left to see what's coming at us. But what we're not looking at is to the right to see what's coming up that sidewalk, you know. And again, alluding to the point that you had made earlier, you know, it's one thing when somebody's walking up the sidewalk at a few miles per hour versus riding up the sidewalk at 15 to 20 miles an hour, and you see them coming and they're, you know, 30, 40, 50 feet away. You look left, you go to pull out, and now they're right in front of you, you know, versus still being 20 feet away, let's say, if they're walking. And that's something that, you know, habitually speaking, as individuals that drive, we kind of tend to do that. I see it, I've caught myself doing it as well. I've learned from riding these devices as I've had some close calls, but that's one of the things I share with people when they come to the shop is stop going against the grain of traffic. I know it feels safer because they think I can see the cars coming at me or the vehicles coming at me, but in reality, it is not safe at all.
Yeah, I get scared every time I see one of those incoming at me. Basic questions here. Do you have to have training? You should have training, Captain Dudley, as you know from personal experience.
Yes, I'll add to the first question. Riding against the flow of traffic is actually against the law. I said before and I say it again, you should be operating an e-scooter or e-device the same as a bicycle. You should be traveling with the flow of traffic. You should have at least one hand on the handlebars, and you should not be distracted. That's one of the problems I see a lot, is that you'll see kids driving their e-scooters with a cell phone in one hand and 2 earbuds in their ears. So they can't see what's coming and they can't hear what's coming. Now, as far as training goes, Red Rock Harley puts on these courses where they have bicycle safety, and they go over all these laws, and they have courses on how to ride bicycles, and traffic does the same thing with LVMPD. So check for their website, and we'll post those times that we have those events.
Captain, wait, go ahead.
Yes, if I can add to that as well, is I think one of the biggest things to drive home to not just the riders but also the parents is a bicycle on the roadway has to follow all the rules of the road, just as if you're driving a car. So you keep that in mind when it comes to stop signs, yielding, crosswalks, everything like that. And that is something going to the next part with the training. Correct, there isn't any training in regards to the e-bikes and the e-scooters. So one thing that we're trying to do better within the city is to partner with our local, it could be churches or organizations, to go within their communities to then provide that training and invite your local police department out there to help with that. And that has been a huge part to help us get us on the right path to provide that training and education to all of our riders in the community.
How fast should somebody be going?
If you're on the e-bicycle, you have to go the same speed as that is posted. On a sidewalk, if you're on with an e-bicycle or an e-scooter, you cannot go over 15 miles an hour. But you have to remember, even though an e-bicycle may get you up to 28 miles per hour by law, based on the category of bicycle, you still have to follow the rules of the speed limit that are on the roadway.
Speaking of pedestrians, this viewer had a point.
Mackenzie Beckstead. Are we more concerned about the people riding the scooters or the people being affected by those riding the scooters? Because I think it's dangerous for both. I work on the strip and on the sidewalks, and I always feel like I'm about to get run over as I step around people by bikes and electric scooters.
I'm sure CCSD, you all hear that from parents, from teachers, from everybody daily. Kids are whirring around on these devices, and they are putting families at risk.
Absolutely. And we'll remind the bike riders, the scooter riders, that if you're on the sidewalk, the pedestrian has the right of way. That you can't just come flying up around people, that the speed limit is 15 max, but the scooter also cannot go faster than 20 ever. Like, so if the scooter goes faster than 20, it's not a legal scooter. But yeah, it's giving people, you know, treating people like human beings is the biggest thing. Being a little more kind, saying, you know, this person is a human being and not an obstacle, is probably something that we could all get behind. And something that we ask people to do is treat every kid in our school zones like they're your own child. And you know, maybe we'll get through another week or another day without these types of injuries, but even the crosswalks themselves have rules that you have to be on a certain side of the crosswalk. So there's a lot of laws.
Any advice for when somebody is riding an e-device on the sidewalk, how they should mind pedestrians?
I mean, you could get a bell. Bells are huge on bicycles, letting people know that you're coming, announcing that you're coming so they're not getting scared, because if it's somebody with dogs or somebody that has a device in their ear so they're listening to music, or a runner, you might frighten them, which could cause another incident. So just being very, you know, from a distance, not screaming, but just saying, hey, on your left, or, you know, just communicating with them. Just like you would if you're going to try to cross the street with a driver, you're communicating with them, whether it's just your eyes meeting each other or just saying something. It's just about being polite.
We'll go to question number 5, and now we'll pivot to Assemblymember Patchett and Commissioner Knapp. This is definitely for you both.
I'm Juyoung Kim. I'm from North Las Vegas. I live here. My kids go to this school. Is there any plan to make a law or limitation, restriction for kids, e-scooter or e-bike with any like a completed ban, or any speed restriction, or their rule how to ride safely, or safety devices strictly? Because I see many kids that doesn't do anything, like a helmet, no speed limit.
So when we talk about the laws, first of all, where are we at? There's only so much that lawmakers, local jurisdictions can do. You both have been all in this for the past 2 years, so to speak.
Yeah, I think first it's important to recognize helmets save lives. We know that speed causes fatalities, helmets save lives. Those are just 2 facts that the community's got to wrap their arms around and really embrace. And so we also know that if a law ought to be passed to encourage people to do what is going to save their life, then maybe we ought to look at that. In unincorporated Clark County, we do now have the ordinance that requires helmet use on these devices and others. You know, we're certainly going to continue to work with the state to see that happen statewide, because they save lives. You know, if it doesn't tug on your heartstrings, like I know it does for many of the viewers, for everybody here, it's tugging on our pocketbooks, right? Taxpayers are paying an enormous amount of money at the hands of these dangerous situations. Many of these people here are working on behalf of taxpayers to reduce the number of incidents that happens on our roads. So if it's not pulling on your heartstring, if you're not personally impacted, everybody in the state is impacted. And so reducing the number of these incidents by saving lives with helmets and by other rules and other ordinances and laws, it's not only the right thing to do, but it's the prudent thing to do.
Assemblymember, go ahead.
So one of the things is not lost in the state legislature is the issue of the use and operation of e-bikes, e-scooters, and e-motorcycles, right? This has become an emergent issue that deserves an emergent response. And so one of the things that the state legislature recently did in the assembly was adopt a resolution to look into this issue, right, and address it promptly. And so that effort is ongoing and will begin in full swing come the new year. The goal of which is to look at the current status of the law. What does Nevada law have to say in regards to operation of e-motorcycles or e-scooters or e-bikes? And are there any robust measures we can put in place to beef that up? Clearly, after the discussion today, there are issues and holes in the state of the law. I had the fortunate opportunity to work with Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Knapp and others on the Board of County Commissioners and draft the ordinance that is in place currently today. And I looked into the state of Nevada's law in regards to these electric devices, and it is not complete, right? There are things we can do, measures we can put in place to improve upon. The state legislature is committed to do that. They'll also look at just the effect of these devices within school zones, right? What is happening within particularly a school area? And what can we do to improve child safety, the pedestrian safety? There are many road users, but the most vulnerable road users are our children, and we need to look at how we can improve the safety in and around school zones. also, there's issues with just the way that the state of our laws are set up, whether or not jurisdictions have the authority and what kind of power do they have. And so we're going to look into that and see what other measures can we adopt through legislation that will empower local jurisdictions, including the school district, to implement measures tailored to their areas that will allow them to protect the students or protect the neighborhoods in their communities. And these efforts are ongoing, but it will, I believe conversations like today and conversations that will be had in the future with the state legislature will prompt great measures that will improve and bring awareness to the issue we're dealt with today.
I'm sure you're getting it a lot from people in the community. You guys just met in a special session. Why couldn't you pass a law?
Yeah, you know, politics is politics, and there are a lot of bureaucratic hurdles you got to get through. This is in a measure that was fully adopted, I believe unanimously. I don't recall, but I'm pretty sure, if not every legislator, most legislators, yes. We are committed. And it takes time, unfortunately. And those that aren't familiar with kind of how government works, it does take some time. But I can assure you, as a citizen, as an assembly member, newly appointed, that I'll tirelessly work to resolve this issue. I have a personal experience with a child who lost his life in a school zone. He was not on an e-scooter, but he was on a scooter, right? And so I understand the impact of the number and the data that we're talking about today. There are human beings behind this. There are children. There are families that are grieving and have been devastated by the loss of a child due to just lack of education potentially, or avoidance of law, or just ignorance to the law. And so these things are important and they deserve prompt attention, and we'll get through it and we'll do it.
How are you learning since you've become a lawmaker? You as a parent, you see the urgency, you feel the urgency on our roads, but you're explaining to fellow parents who want action now that there has to be a right law made. It has to be right for Nevada, and there has to be research done.
Yeah, and that's democracy in action, right? We have a system set up to allow for a proper debate and to proper opportunities for those that have voices on both sides of the coin to bring measures and efforts to create a good law that will protect Nevadans, including children. And so that's a process that I've been involved with throughout my career. I understand that it takes, it's a huge lift for sure, and it takes time, and I understand the frustration. Are we late to the game? Well, technology moves fast, and it's hard. Legislation can never keep up with the pace of technology, but we can't just sit there and say that and not do anything. This is an effort to do something, put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, let the rubber hit the road, and we're going to make sure that our children and those neighbors and friends of ours are protected while they use the road, whether they're in a vehicle, an e-scooter, e-bike, a one-wheel like we learned today, or they're simply walking on the road, walking on a sidewalk with their dog and their family, right? Everyone deserves to be able to use the roadways and feel safe and confident in doing so.
And when you said, are we late to the game, the reality is every state is trying to figure this out. Arizona, they just had a lawmaker introduce a bill. Utah's ahead of the game. They have age limits, speed limits, helmet requirements, whatnot. Every state is trying to figure this out, and that's the challenge right now.
I think that's right, and Assemblyman Patchett is exactly right that some of this takes a lot of time, but I think to those viewers who are demanding action right now, I think people should also recognize there is action. You've got 3 police departments right here who have made this a #1 priority. You have also the recognition, certainly in Clark County, but even among my neighboring jurisdictions, who are putting a whole new focus on road design that is intended to save lives. We have, you've covered extensively our Safe Sidewalk ordinance. We know that can save lives, has saved lives. There are things that are absolutely happening in Southern Nevada that are making a difference, and I think the people working on it certainly are laser focused on that.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to say from the Clark County School District perspective, we really have felt the urgency amongst our policymakers. We are cooperating with Clark County on a school traffic safety working group where we're breaking down all the data from all of these incidents. We're looking at all the different types of education that's going on throughout our community to see how we can unify it. And we're talking about what policies we need to advocate for in the next legislative session. And that involves everybody here, all of the municipalities, all of the law enforcement agencies. And I was part of the conversations when we first called up to the governor's office and the legislative leaders when the special session was called. And we asked, can you please put a school safety bill on the special session? Clark County was a huge advocate for that as well. And they responded very quickly and said yes. And so I do feel an urgency that I definitely did not feel even before the beginning of this school year, that people see this as a serious issue and they're looking at education, policy, and data to see what we can do to fix it.
Two lawmakers told me this. One, former Fire Chief John Steinbeck, he told me, now that he's in the legislature, he told me, passing a law is one thing, fixing the problem is another. And Assemblymember Considine, who introduced ACR 4, commissioning the study, she said to me, we could pass a law, but if nobody knows about it and nobody's educated on what to do, then that's not effective either. Education here has to be key. What are all of you doing in each of your niches in the community to spread the word out? Anyone else?
I can tell you within the city of Henderson, it has also been put at the forefront between from the top all the way down, where we see that there's a sense of urgency to get this taken care of and to work quicker and to expedite this to keep our riders and our children safe. So some of the things that we're doing is we're getting on there with our PSAs, we're getting on there with our social media and our website. We're actively working with our community partners and also with our local schools to be on the same page of how we're going about to monitor and also to do this enforcement and education to the riders. So our big thing is to ride smart, ride safe. And it's when you're out there, it's like about pushing the message, share the road, be patient with one another, be aware of your surroundings. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, as a rider, make yourself seen by slowing down, wearing the proper attire, and stopping at crosswalks so the drivers can see you. So it is definitely a sense of urgency on our part, and we're working tirelessly day in and day out to get that message out, to educate, but also from our end as needed to do an enforcement as well.
I think there's some things we can do to better collaborate our education efforts, but one other thing I wanted to mention too that we appreciate is that we now have crossing guards in all of our elementary and middle schools, and that's due to investments from our municipalities. A lot of people think the school district pays for crossing guards. We don't, it's our municipalities. And we hope we're seeing some that are starting to experiment with crossing guards in high school areas as well, and we're really excited about that. So we are seeing a huge investment in that.
I think education is the number one thing, because that's something that we can give these kids now, without waiting for laws to pass and ordinances and restrictions and whatnot. I think maybe using the schools as a way in to these kids, because that's where they're at, right? They're in school every day. That age bracket that we're seeing these fatalities and these injuries occur are in that realm, and nobody wants to bury their children, as a parent, So I think that getting into the schools, maybe creating a program, a collaboration where we can teach these kids certain aspects of the law that obviously they're not aware of at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, teach them how to properly ride these machines. That's something that a lot of parents don't even know. How do you teach somebody something you've never done before? So that's a problem here, because I got parents that come into the store every day and they have zero clue about e-bikes, about scooters, motos, all the above. So I think educating them as well as educating the kids immediately, getting some sort of program in place in the schools is probably what's going to start saving these kids' lives right now.
I could add something as well, is we're always trying to figure out what's the right age that we get something for our kids. I have twin 8-year-old daughters. I come from a home where me and my wife are both working a lot. She's a principal, so we don't have a lot of time. If you don't have the time to sit down or you don't feel comfortable having that tough conversation with your kid, then they're probably not old enough to be riding that device. If you're not comfortable telling them that this could kill them if they ride it wrong, or something could really hurt them, then you probably shouldn't buy it for them this Christmas.
I'll open that up. Who shouldn't be buying an e-device or having an e-device?
Well, I have 3 kids, and I work at a trauma center. And we almost did, and we decided not to buy this year because all my children are under 10. And so it's not that I don't believe in them, but when you see it firsthand, I think that has a lot to do with it. And if you, I think part of the problem we discussed earlier is exactly that. I mean, you can pick these up at your local Costco or Sam's or wherever, and it's not like buying a regular bicycle anymore. So you need to do your homework. You talk about what to do as a community. These guys see it in a different place. They see it before they come to us. So my numbers are not the same as yours. If we put them together, they're probably double. But then you have the problem of what can we do? As a trauma center, we have a responsibility to reach out as well. And so our side of prevention is, what do we do with the ones we're already seeing? What do we do with the ones to keep them from coming in the door? So we've had a lot of outpush with the helmet laws as far as, even if it's not a law, what about the helmet that's right for you? Gentleman back here spoke a minute ago. They talk about which helmet to ride with. Well, they don't tell you that when you buy it at the store, unless you are at a bike shop.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of opportunity for us before things even move. And so we partner with Safe Kids programs. Of course, being here today is a partnership by itself. So hopefully that's just education like that out front would help a lot. And my kids aren't getting one for Christmas.
Parent.
I'm sorry, do you mind if I weigh in?
Yeah, absolutely.
On what Metro is doing to increase the education and awareness? We're currently working on a traffic safety campaign, and that includes different topics every 2 weeks that we're going to go out and just say the first one is crosswalks. We're going to video crosswalks, answer questions, demonstrate how to properly cross the roads, and we're going to show some enforcement efforts we're doing. And we're working with the PIO and with the news organizations to run those in the media for about 2 weeks, so that everyone has no excuse to say that we're not trying to get the word out.
Many of your parents here, some of you have bought e-devices for your child, some of you choose not to. What do you say to parents trying to figure this all out?
I think the biggest thing is it's for the parents to be involved and know what their kid is ready for. There's some parents who have a kid who's 16 or 17 that know they're not ready to drive a car yet. I think they have to be actively involved and be realistic with themselves on doing an assessment as if their kid is ready for that e-scooter, that e-bicycle, or even to drive a car. So I think the biggest thing is be actively involved, be honest with yourself, have those tough conversations, and make the decision based off of that. But biggest thing, if you decide to do it, make sure that they are trained and educated and that they're ready for that device.
How do you know if your child's not ready?
For me, I think one of the biggest things is I think what Captain Deli talked about is talk with them. You know what they are mentally prepared for. You know if they're kind of like, we'll say like maybe a space cadet kind of out there, or if your kid's super responsible. Also go out there and watch them. Have those conversations, talk with them, and I think it's one of those things is where's their responsibility, where is their awareness at, and their education and understanding, and on top of it, are they going to listen to you? So that's the thing is if they're not, because they could be one of these kids that goes out there, yes, I'm going to go out there and I'll follow the rules, and they go out there and they find out that they're not. But you have to be honest with yourself and make that right decision.
Do parents know what these kids are doing on these devices?
A lot of the times they're not. They are not aware of what they're doing. Yeah, we're talking popping wheelies down the road, going in and out of traffic. We're talking circling the police to try to bait them, tearing up our parks and recs, our parks with the grass. We'll get parents out there, and a lot of the time they are not aware of not only just the rules of the laws with these e-bikes, but also with what their kid is actually doing with it.
Opening it up among you all, do any of you have questions for each other?
I mean, touching on the points that the two officers made, I agree. I got parents that come in all the time, and no matter how much I tell them, this bike does 70 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, it's not legal on the road. they buy it anyway, and they go, oh, no, he's going to ride in the dirt. And then I find out the next day, they wrecked that bike or whatnot. It's a regular thing. I mean, some of these e-motos that people buy, they take them out into the parking lot, and 50% of them end up on the ground. And this is even after I'm educating them on how powerful these machines are. I asked them, do you have any experience riding? Yeah, everybody says yes. I said, well, what do you ride? And I asked them, oh, I ride, a CR 100. Well, I'm like, this is way faster than a CR 100. I mean, you're going to be shocked at how powerful this machine is. And it's just like over the head or in one ear and out the other. And we all sit there at the shop and just mind blown. At some of the decisions that some of these parents are making without ever even having ridden a motorcycle themselves. And it's like, try to educate them. But at the end of the day, I think it's really more about educating the kids, because the kids, if done correctly, I taught martial arts for many years, and if done correctly and you capture their attention, they'll remember some of those things.
I have a question for the school district. I remember when we were all kids, there would be safety assemblies that everyone in the school would go see. Is there that kind of program now where we could do like one on scooter safety or so forth, where all the students in that particular school see it once a year?
Yeah, I actually had this thought earlier today when I was thinking about this segment that we were going to do, is where we could go into the middle schools or the high schools and talk about what is safe, what is unsafe, what those behaviors are, because we had those, how to use the crosswalk, how to look left, right, left. So I think that's an awesome opportunity for us all to get into the school and figure out how can we connect with these kids and how can we make those lasting memories, so like when they transfer out onto the roadway, it has an impact to keep them safe instead of being hit by a car.
It's got to be fun for the kids. Yeah. That's what it's about. Martial arts was no different. Making it fun for them, they just were sponges. If you just make it about policy and you make it about things that are uninteresting to kids, you're just going to lose them. It's about making it fun for them, interactive with them. Like I said, it's kind of something I wanted to discuss with you guys as well. After the show or whatnot. It's just about providing some sort of educational program within the schools, because that's where you're gonna connect with them immediately. Instead of waiting for policies and lawmakers to do their thing, which I totally get, takes time. But what can we do about it right now?
What laws do we need?
We need helmet laws, and I'm like everybody here, there's got to be some personal accountability and responsibility, but we do need to do better when it comes to road designs. Our roads are designed in ways that encourage the fastest amount of speed. You've got blind corners, you've got difficulty navigating our community. And certainly in Clark County and all of our neighboring jurisdictions, we're looking forward. A perfect example is our collaboration with the school district on STAR between Las Vegas Boulevard and Bermuda. That is going to be what I hope will be an example of a properly built, safe road for everybody. You've got a multi-use path that can accommodate scooters, e-scooters. It can accommodate cyclists and pedestrians and vehicular traffic. And we can do that. We have large rights of way here. It can be done, particularly over time. And so I'm optimistic about road design in the future changing and evolving, but that's one thing that we've got to put renewed focus on.
As we look forward into developing laws for Nevada, who thinks that we need age restrictions?
It's definitely a consideration that we should take into account. For the legal devices, the class 1, 2, and 3 bicycles and the scooters that are allowed to be on the road, that should be something that I think a certain age kid could ride. I don't think it's an 8-year-old. I don't know if I'd even trust a 12-year-old to do it. But we already had laws in place for like the mopeds and the pit bikes and all these things that have come along over the years. I think that's definitely worth talking about.
Do we need more places for these kids to ride?
I was just going to touch on that. I think that just like in skateboarding, back in the day, they were ruining parks, and I remember back in Philadelphia, Love Park was a big issue, in City Hall. Then turns out the X Games came and did an event there later on. But providing them a safe place to ride some of these, let's say like the e-motos and stuff like that, creating a park for this, because progression is going to happen, in any avenue of life, including sports. We see it, every year. It's getting crazier and crazier at the X Games. It's getting just out of control. Some of the stuff they're doing just blows my mind. And trying to stop that or restrict that is just basically restricting humanity in general. You got these young kids that are just doing phenomenal things and things that I've never dreamed of doing, you know, when I was their age on these vehicles, and unfortunately they don't have a place to do it, so they're doing it on the streets. It's affecting other drivers, other people, pedestrians, like we said, causing accidents as well as you know, deaths. And I think giving them a safe place to ride, like a e-moto park or something along those lines, is going to be part of the solution, you know, because creating restrictions, and like I said, they're circling the police and they're baiting them and stuff, you know, that's a kid thing to do, I guess, you know, because they don't really realize the ramifications of what they're doing, you know, and what they're doing with the officers and putting them at risk, you know, even chasing them and things of that nature. You know, it puts everybody at risk, you know, it puts the kids at risk, the officers at risk, the innocent bystanders at risk as well. So I think giving them an outlet is going to be very, very important in this whole, you know, this whole equation.
If I could, as well as, you should just know who your kids are hanging out with.
Yeah.
If I was out there as a kid on one of these devices, I'm probably not going to have most of those behaviors until you start adding other kids my age into the group where we're showing off, doing things that are dangerous or risky. So just know that that's going to happen when there's a big group of kids with all these e-scooters. It's just going to happen, 100%. But you know, it's not every single kid out there doing something wrong. But we should just consider who our kids are with, what they're doing, and have those open conversations with them daily, so we know.
Wrapping everything up, if you could deliver one message to a parent right now, what would you say?
Do your homework.
Yeah, knowledge is power, right? The more knowledge you have, the more control and power you have over the operation of these devices. If we can equip our children and our young adults with this knowledge, they're better able to be the solution to the problem.
I would add to that, be actively involved. We see a lot of parents who are just, and it could be based off of schedules, work, and things like that. Be actively involved, know what your kid is up to, have conversations, know what they're doing, and be aware of that. You know, you couple that with the knowledge, also with everything else that's been talked about. That would be the big thing: is know what they're doing and who they're with, and monitor it.
Keep your kids as innocent and young as long as you can. Don't go and get them a cell phone when they're 5 years old. Don't leave them unattended. Don't buy one of these scooters if you're, like I said, you're not willing to have those tough conversations about what could happen if you do it, or those thoughts, those intrusive thoughts that you're having about, if I buy this, is my kid going to end up hurt or worse on the way to school or over the break? If that's things you're thinking of and you're not ready to talk about that or deal with it, consider doing something else.
Helmets, 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 helmets.
Yeah, you can't put a price on safety.
Helmets, period, helmets.
Slow down in school zones, please. Don't do U-turns in school zones. Don't double park in crosswalks.
Don't park too close to the crosswalks. I mean, if you go to any school zone in the morning or in the afternoon, it's a recipe for disaster because people are in a rush and they're only thinking about themselves. If they could just think about everybody else and just follow the laws, even though there's too many to remember. But if you feel like it's wrong, it probably is.
Protect your gear. Make sure they know how to ride safely. And just like when you're learning how to ride a motorcycle, assume motorists can't see you. Assume that they don't see you. And how do you make yourself more visible? And then, as our other panel members have suggested, knowing your own children. Are they really ready for this? Are they competent for this? Do they understand the consequences if they don't ride safely? Are they competent and responsible when they're a group not to do things that might put them in harm's way?
Your viewer who asked the question, who are we looking to get after, the rider, the driver, who are we looking to talk about here and get after? That sort of encapsulates this whole conversation. It's everybody is the answer to that question. Every single member of this community has a role to play when it comes to saving lives, no matter who you are. And I think that really summarizes this conversation. It's not about blaming the kids on their scooters. It's not about blaming just the parents. And it's not about blaming educators or lawmakers. Everyone has a piece of the pie, and that means that everybody could be part of the solution.
Well said.
Well said.